not to know what has happened this week. Period. Come on, folks. There isn't a single person that I know that's alive and walking upright that isn't talking about the PGA Tour merger with Liv Golf. I wish we had had this information last week, and we would have presented it to Mr. Jim Nance and Mr. Boeheim. Hey, Connor, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Barry.
Hey, good having you here today. Hey, we have a co-host today, Connor.
Oh, boy.
Oh, and you know who that is?
Who is that?
Mr. Joe Convertino, Jr., president of CH Insurance. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Perry. How are you?
I'm fine. Listen, before we get back to this Liv quick, you told me you were you played pretty well, didn't you, over the week?
We had our senior invitational, the member guest at the Calvary Club, Thursday, Friday. In and out of the smoke.
The smoke. Don't tell me about the smoke.
We'll get into the smoke because I know you experienced some smoke this week. I'm hoping you're
not good. If I had known, I wouldn't have played. I would have pulled out. It was awful. So you did pretty well, and you're playing in a charity event next week.
Yes, Monday I chair actually the Joseph's House for Women. We're at the Skinny Atlas Country Club. Monday here, the 12th. Great cause. We love the community, just like you. I hear, where are you next week?
On Monday, I'm going to be at hospice over there at Cavalry.
Okay, do you want to use my number?
Steve Roberts invited me, by the way, to play in his foursome.
Nice.
I need to use your locker because I'm going to shower after the event. Period. I have to shower.
Use my locker, and I'll even give you my number to buy stuff. Would you like a shirt, Barry?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I want shirts, ties, whatever. We got. You gave me some of your logoed balls. Would you mind if we every once in a while gave a sleeve away on air with a trivia question?
Of course.
Oh,
Let's
good. Okay. All right, let's get back to Liv Golf, folks, because this is not average stuff. You've taken a side. You're either in favor of this or you aren't. You like what has been happening or you haven't liked it. And I can't wait to hear from our guests. Our guests on air today. Let me tell you who we have, Joe. I thought we would hear from some amateurs, which would be you and I. I'd like to hear your take on it. And then I wanted to talk to a golf professional who has been totally against this Liv thing, Trey Walewski, and Tom Gorman, who has been in favor of Liv because of the money. You got to follow the money. And then we have someone else who's going to wrap this up for us, hopefully. Hopefully we won't have any technical problems, but I thought we would hear from somebody with some national recognition and credibility and always has thoughts, never have to worry about where he's coming from, right?
Perfect.
And
they'll be last week?
He was here last week as well.
Okay.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, you keep me in suspense. I want to keep the listeners in suspense.
Well, there's a surprise guest coming on, folks, at the end of the show, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it. And also from a female perspective, like an executive working with a bank, Lori Usher of Seneca Savings. She plays golf once in a while, but she has some definite thoughts about it as well.
Beautiful.
So we're going to do this today because this is the biggest news in golf. It may be the biggest story as well. So you give me your thoughts about Liv, the merger.
I thought you might have, Rory McIlroy on.
No, not Rory. He doesn't want to come on.
Couldn't get him. Initially, when you think about it a year ago, as we know, Norman's been trying to do this for, 3 decades, Barry?
Well, he's been trying to do stuff.
Something.
Yes,
Trying to develop something. Look, I believe competition is good in this world. Okay, but is it developed? Okay, yes, money talks. Okay, but is it developed? I mean, it feels like the PGA was, and our players, they were trying to protect them over these years. And then all of a sudden, this week, right, it felt like a surprise. Like, oh, my God.
No, it wasn't a surprise, Joe. Right. It was a shock to the PGA Tour players. You know why? Because nobody knew. They didn't say a thing. They don't have to tell the players because the players don't own it.
Correct.
And by the way, we're going to have Hank Fuss come on to describe exactly Hank Fuss of Chambers Accounting. He understands the not-for-profit status, and he has some interesting things to say. I played with him and Terry Morris yesterday.
Beautiful.
Hank invited me over to play Onondaga, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So, but the players were shocked, Joe, about what happened because they didn't know anything, and all they've been doing is promoting the PGA Tour or supporting the position that Jay Monahan has taken. For the last 2 years. Anyway, do we have? He's on the line with us. Okay, one of our guests, regular guests, who has been not quite in favor of this Liv group, but I don't know what he's going to say today now that he knows that there's a merger. And that would be our own Mr. Trey Walewski, member of the Golf Hall of Fame in the Central New York PGA. Good morning, Trey.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Okay, now we want to hear what you have to say about this merger, Trey.
Well, one, it's not a merger with Liv and the PGA Tour. It's a merger with the PIF, the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, which funds the Liv Tour.
Yes.
They're going to take their money out of Liv and put it into the PGA Tour. So in essence, Liv is going to be dead. So,
Dead.
Okay.
And so, I mean, Norman says they're going to do business as usual, but it's hard to do business as usual when you have no money. So he has to find another, billion-dollar partner to fund his league. So, everyone says that, I'm hearing people, Liv won, Liv bought the tour. Liv bought nothing. The Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia, now that's a whole other story, too. I mean, I think the PGA Tour are hypocrites because, they said, we're not going to take the blood money, blah, 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 and now they're taking it. So where Tom Gorman is right, money does talk, and, that happens. But
right.
for people to think that Liv is taking over the tour, and that's what you see online, and these ignorant people that don't understand, it's like, that's not true. So if you really read through the agreement and stuff, it has nothing to Liv. Basically, Jay Monahan's in charge of Liv, so he can disband it, he can stop it. So Greg Norman's probably out of a job. He's going to get a severance package, which is more than any of us make in a lifetime.
Yeah, that was the thing, guys. I mean, if you listen to Rory this week, the media blew it up. Well, PGA merges with Liv, and you're right, Trey. I mean, it wasn't supposed to come out that way, but the way the media did, it's a merger with the DP Tour over in Europe, in the Saudis, with the funding or the bank, but the way it came out, Liv's a winner in this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many places, they said, Liv won. I said, well, why would Liv pay $2 billion and then close its doors?
Yeah, correct.
So,
Trey, listen.
How does that win?
Right. Look, we know that you have not been in favor of Liv, and that you really didn't like the way the guys left the tour because that's where they started. That's that's all that's been around. But this is not the first time. Look at the NFL. There was an AFL. Look at the NBA. I mean, it happens all over the place. There's competition. There's nothing wrong with competition. And the ABA, yes, of course. So it's not the first time. However, this was more personal because you were leaving, and I know how loyal you guys are to each other. I mean, there are about 30,000 of you around the country in the PGA of America, and I know how close you are. And all those guys on tour belong to the PGA, but the tour is a separate entity, of course. But let me tell you what happened now. Why did this even happen? Why, all of a sudden, it was a shock to everybody in the world, even the pundits on TV at the Golf Channel, they couldn't believe what happened. But it did happen at 7 a.m., at 7:10 a.m. on April 18th, 2023. Jimmy Dunn, by the way, he's on your board there. They call it the PGA Tour board. He sends a message to Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the governor of the Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF. And it said this, in essence, Yasser, my name is Jimmy Dunn. I'm a member of the Tour Policy Board. I'd like the opportunity for a call and hopefully a visit. That started it all in April. Now, why in April, on April 18th? Trey, That's all we've been talking about every single week since they started this nonsense. I think I know why it was getting to the point where there is so much animosity between the two leagues now that something had to be done. And ironically, at the Masters, I predicted there would be 2 of the Liv golfers in the top 10 and 2 or 3 more in the top 20. And guess what? They didn't. It wasn't even close. We had John Rahm who won, and then following him, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, and Patrick Reed, 3 of the top 4 players at the Masters. All of a sudden, Liv is on the board again, and that they're great players. All of a sudden, April 18th, Jimmy Dunn sends this thing out. Give me a break. What is happening behind the scenes? But wait a minute now. There's just there's more to the story, because here's what the deal is, Trey. The PGA Tour will still be called the PGA Tour, but now Commissioner Jay Monahan oversees the whole thing. Look at the Liv Golf and the private investment fund. They've been losing billions of dollars on this. They've already spent over $1 billion. They don't want to lose any more money. They were ripe for this. We've been talking about them merging or doing something. And in fact, I even wrote an article saying something's going to happen, especially if the players do well at the Masters. What do you have to say, Joe?
I was going to say, did you read about there's other factors into this that went away, guys? Litigation.
Yes, there's no litigation, of course.
So if you got, hundreds of millions of litigation against you and all that pressure, get rid of all that. Come together.
And Trey is right. Trey is right. Monahan can disband the Liv if he wants to. So that's over. So you've been doing your homework, Trey.
People don't realize. Everybody's saying, PGA Tour was going to lose the lawsuit. Well, the DP World Tour won their lawsuit. So that put even more pressure on Liv because they already lost one lawsuit. So the precedent was already there that they were probably going to lose. So that gave the PGA even more bargaining power or whatever to get out of, to move this along because, they were probably going to lose the next lawsuit. And, you know what I mean? I never had any problem with the players going to take money. Great for them. It was the way they did it and the way they said, we're not doing it for the money. We're doing it for the good of the game. Phil hasn't shut his mouth and used to be my favorite player. Now I can't stand him. I'm doing this for all the other players. I said, if Phil did it for the love of the game, why do you take $200 million if you did it for the love of the game? So they were hypocrites from the start. Guys like Brooks Koepka, if you watch that full turn on Netflix, he said, hey, I'm going for the money. I'm not playing good anymore. My injuries, I'm nervous. They're taking care of my brother. And,
no different than Ian Poulter. Yeah, Ian Poulter was the same way.
Well, the problem I have with Ian Poulter is he was saying, I should be paid for my talents and I need my money and blah, blah, blah. And he was saying this and complaining as he was walking onto his private jet. Mm-hmm. So I really had issues with that scene. Like, you're complaining about you don't make any money as you're walking on a private jet. So, and if you see the guys who did go to Liv, they were very unliked. I mean, the Patrick Reed and DeChambeau and Koepka at the time and Poulter and then, what Sergio has become and Pat Perez, these guys were unliked. And they were almost like outcasts on the tour. So
yeah,
I think Norman preyed on them because he knew he could get them to go. And the surprise was like a Dustin Johnson, who seems like everybody likes Dustin, So I just think those guys, they made their money great. Some of them are coming back to the PGA Tour. I don't know exactly what the whole PIF thing is and how that's going to shake out. Is it going to be a different competition? Is it going to be another tour? Who knows? I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm just, for all the Liv lovers out there, if Liv was so great, why did they have to take it off the air last week and put on the Animal Planet? Because the Animal Planet is better rated.
Dre, you are exactly right. Because they were losing billions of dollars. We're not even talking millions anymore, folks. Billions. And they never made 10 cents. And so you're right about Norman, too. He's going to have to look for another job.
Oh, he doesn't need to work, does he?
Online, I said, if all you great supporters why is Liv dying then? All you people that are online all the time, Liv is great. Well, why aren't you watching it on TV? Why aren't you going to their events? Why aren't any sponsors sponsoring them? They're dying a slow death, and I think the PIF realized that.
Well, Trey, it was bound to happen. The merger was bound to happen. They started the process. It's going to be a healing. There's going to be a healing process as well for the next several years. And eventually, in a couple years, nobody will even be talking about it again. It'll be one tour. Monahan and the PGA, if he's still around, they have control. The players don't have control of the tour. Monahan does, and the board. But I'm going to get Hank Fust next week to describe what this not-for-profit is with the PGA, because Congress is getting involved now, and they're going to investigate this whole not-for-profit. Hey, Trey, thank you very much for your comments.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Trey.
Okay. Yeah, and we're coming back now with Lori Usher, the Senior Vice President for Retail Banking, to get a female perspective, because this is divided. It really has. People are on both sides. The Liv Tour certainly has more fun. The people who attend the Liv Tour, they're into it with the music and everything else. Do you like that?
No, I only watched maybe a half hour on a Saturday. It was kind of wacky how it looked on TV and people partying, and it was interesting. It doesn't look right for golf. You know, if you say professional golf, the PGA Tour, you don't see things like that on the tour. On the screen, you got the TV screen split with the teams on the left, individuals. I was like, is this NASCAR?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I think we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with Lori, all right? Folks, this is News Radio 570 WSYR, now on 106.9 FM. In Central New York, welcome back to Tea Time with the Pro Noun, Joe Convertino Jr. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, sir.
All right, we've been talking about the Liv Golf merger with the PGA Tour, and I thought it would be good because we have listeners who don't play golf, but they're opinionated about this. There's a divide in the country, and I thought we'd get a perspective from sort of like an executive type person with Seneca Savings, Senior Vice President, Retail Banking, Lori Usher. Good morning.
Good morning, Terry. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Lori. How are you?
Great.
All right. Now, you have an opinion as well. When we talked earlier, I didn't want you to tell me what your opinion was when we spoke yesterday, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about this, because there is certainly a divide, maybe even with the employees at the bank. So you have the floor. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think that golf is a sport that is steeped in tradition and with a rich history of highly revered men and women who respect and play the game. They play by the rules of the game. And for centuries, golf has been played by not only titans of the industry and heads of state, but the average man, and it's a great equalizer. But now, I don't know, it doesn't feel right with the Saudis. It really doesn't. They're, one of the, it feels as if they forced their way into one of the most respected and revered institutions in sports. And it's an effort, I believe, to mask their disrespect to the rule of the law and basic human decency and their long history of human rights. So that's really how I feel as an outsider, just kind of watching things unfold and just scratching my head like, how did this happen? Why did this happen?
Yeah, Lori, this is Joe. What was your initial reaction when the tours went separate, when Liv created, and did that really generate anything with you?
Yeah, it's kind of wild how it all happened.
Yeah.
I don't play golf. I just kind of, follow the game, following some of the players. And, it sounded like the players that stood for their loyalty and honesty, that stayed behind, that didn't follow Liv, I truly respected and admired them. So the fact that things have happened the way they did, it's just, now you're just left like, why? How did that happen?
Right.
So,
yeah. I think with Lori in banking and me in business and things of that nature, Perry, we talked about it everything's a business.
Oh,
And
yes.
and it feels that way that, Liv was taking away. What a better way than merge, right?
Well,
And we look back, and like we talked about, in 5 years, looking back, what will it look like?
5 years from now, I have no idea, but I hope I'm around for 10 years to hear, because it's not going to end. People have taken sides, and just think of the relationships, Lori, the personal relationships. They're going to have to be mended. They're going to be playing with each other. Phil Mickelson, Freddie Couple said, I'm never even going to talk to Phil Mickelson again. And Phil Mickelson and Freddie have been buddies for years, over 20 years.
I forgot about that, but isn't life always about second chances, Perry?
Okay, yes, of course. We're going to find out how Jay Monahan handles this, Lori. Right. We're going to find out. So be ready. It's coming. It's not going to end now, but this is going to be an interesting summer.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Lori, tell Mr. Joe Vitale I said hello.
I certainly will. I certainly will.
Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, Joe Vitale is president of Seneca Savings. Lori, thank you very much for your comments. As someone who enjoys golf and is the more of a traditionalist, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay, there she goes, Lori Usher. Seneca Savings, we're coming back with Tom Gorman. Oh, man, I can't wait. News Radio 570 WSYR. Now on 106.9 FM. Good morning, Joe Convertino. Good morning, Connor. We're back. Tea time with the Pro Noun. I don't know what we're talking about today. There's nothing happening in the news. Who cares? Folks, it's just no news this week at all. So let's just get right into our next guest and hear what he has to say, because there's nothing going on in the golf world that we want to know, I don't think. But our Hall of Famer from the Central New York PGA, Mr. Tom Gorman, is on the line with us, and a member of the PGA of America Rules Committee. Good morning, Tom. There's no news in golf this morning. Do you have anything to say?
Well, yeah, my buddy Perry, you took a funny pill this morning.
But he slept. He did sleep all night.
Yeah. Well, there's a little tournament going on in Canada, the Canadian Open, who nobody even cares about. The only one that's named there is Rory McIlroy because he's the defending champ. The top 5 players, there's not one from the United States there. I don't recognize the names. John and Ray and Hatton I recognize, Connors and C.T. Pan. It's funny what's going on, and of course, you all knew there was a little meeting that took place up there when this thing broke about this big merger. Now that Liv is basically, or whatever you want to call it, the public investment fund of Saudi Arabia is definitely going to own the tour. I mean, that's the crux to this whole thing, Perry.
You really think they're going to own the tour? They're not going to have anything to say. I think Jay Monahan has the upper hand, Tom.
Well, you ain't got your facts straight yet. Number one, I don't know if Monahan's going to survive, because at the players' meeting up there, one of the players got up and said that Monahan should resign the way he handled this initially, and you got a round of applause from all the other players. Wow. So I don't know if he's going to survive. When you think of Ricky Fowler, it cost him $75 million. Rory, a couple $100 million. All these guys that stayed loyal. And you're wrong about the Liv. Liv is going to be the financial backer of the tour. They're the one that's going to put billions into the tour, whatever. And that's one of the reasons why this whole merger took place, because from one of the tour officials, and the way this thing where the tour was coming up with all this extra money in the handling things, that the tour would have been broke in 3 years. So we got a lot to talk about here, Perry.
The tour is going to be broke in 3 years. Well, guess what?
If they were going the way they were going, in other words, they had to come up with an extra $100 million this year. So, let's talk about what happened here, Perry, so you can get the whole crux of the thing. The Liv had the upper hand, and they would have won this lawsuit, and that's why the tour didn't want to go for years fighting this lawsuit, and they didn't want to get involved in disclosures because there's a lot of skeletons in the tour's closet. I mean, how do you think they pay Monahan $10 million a year, and then some of the others that are high paid back there that I don't even know what they do? And I remember going to a cocktail party at one of the players, and I don't want to mention his name, and what he's getting paid. So that imagine going back 40, 50 years and all these tournaments that were run supposedly by charity and whatever else. So if they got involved with this, you can imagine the mess and then the tax ramifications. And the rumor is now that the Congress wants to pass a bill to investigate this tax-free status of the tour now.
Yes, we know that.
When you guys think about it, Tom's hitting something. The charities. When you think of the PGA, forget the guys make $3.4 million to win. A lot of these tournaments give back $5 to $10 million. We may not know behind the scenes, the financial aspect that Tom's saying. I mean, I don't know where he's got that information. We'll get Hank Fust on that next week, Barry.
Well, you're right. Golf gives back more to charity than any other professional sport by far, doesn't it, Tom?
Well, absolutely, Perry, but it's a cover for running these organizations and the fat cats at the top, in other words, just like the guys that run the NCAA. I mean, you think it's right? Monahan's making $10 or $12 million plus his expenses. I mean, seriously, and some of the others there. This Tyler Ennis is another one that, whatever his title is, making $5 or $6 million, vice president of the tour operations. So there's a lot going on there, Perry. They give back $5 or $6 million, but in the meantime, these guys are making that kind of money, and with the TV contract, they could be giving back a lot more. And so there's a lot of things, and I tell you what happened here, Perry, when the Masters broke ground, because the Masters, the PGA Championship, and the USGA, which is coming up this week, which nobody's talking about right now at LA Country Club, and the British Open, they have nothing to do with the tour, and a lot of our listeners don't understand that. Those 4 championships are run by those organizations, and when the Masters decided to allow 17 or 18 live players play, that opened the door right there, Perry.
Yep, it opened the door wide open. Tom, we said when this whole thing started, when they started their first season last year, that this was going to be the topic of discussion forever. And it hasn't stopped, and there's controversy, then people have taken sides. I can't wait for Phil Mickelson to be at the same table as Freddie Couples after being friends for so long. Tom, the players from Liv are going to be playing on the tour again. Sooner or later, they're going to be coming back and playing, and I can't wait to find out what happens. Come on, think about it now.
Well, what about President's Cups, Ryder Cups?
Everything. It's going to be a mess for a while, but it's going to work out one way or another. Monahan, if he's still there, he pulled this off, Tom.
Monahan didn't pull it off. He didn't. So let me get that straight. He didn't pull it off. Monahan didn't pull it off, but we'll see how it plays out. He's going to be the temporary one in charge, and you got to forget the European Tour is involved in this also, and also the commitment that they've got that the top 60 players on the money list this year are already supposed to be exempt in the special tournaments next year. So there's a lot going on, and you got all these tournaments like the Canadian Open's a $9 million tournament. Who wants to play for $9 million when you got the $20 million tournaments? And that's the other whole thing that the tour had to fight was these tournaments now that they were losing, the named players. That why would you go and play for $9 million or $8 million when you could play for $20 million? In other words, and pick the ones you wanted. In other words,
right. And Tom, does it hurt the little guys like they talked about the John Deere Classic? The little cities. Now they're going to go to Japan, to Europe more.
I understand. Tom, there will be the whole point of this. There will be no more $9 million tournaments. That's the whole point of this whole thing. The Saudis were losing hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars on this thing. They didn't make 10 cents, and they're tired of the poor publicity that they've been getting too. Anyway.
Well, not to get involved in the political thing, but the United States did $13 billion of business with Saudi Arabia, and three-quarters of the companies that sponsor the tour events do business with Saudi Arabia. So
yes,
that's why there's a lot of confusion going on here, Perry.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is,
Perry.
and sooner or later we're going to have to figure it out. But Tom. It is always a pleasure hearing you at your perspective. You have the ears and eyes of a hawk with the PGA, and we want you to be on top of this because every week we're going to be looking for your commentary. As soon as somebody makes a mistake, I want you to nail them, Tom. I want you to nail them.
Clear the air, in other words, that don't think Monahan was putting this whole deal together. He wasn't the one, in other words, that put it together, and he's going to be lucky if he survives.
Well,
So,
maybe that's so. But when I mention Monahan, I mean the PGA Tour. But this guy Jimmy Dunn is the guy that contacted Yasser Al Rahman, the governor of the Saudi Arabia's that public investment fund. But Jimmy's on the board, whoever he is, and it's the first time I've even seen him. I got an article right in front of me that shows this guy. So Monahan is involved with Jimmy Dunn and those other guys on the. I don't know how it goes, but we're going to ask Hank Fuss next week. I can tell you that. Tom, thank you very much. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, Perry, and keep studying so you get things straight next time.
Okay, see you, Tom. Listen, this is going to be even better than I thought. As long as we understand it's now happened, so we got to deal with the facts. Now that this has happened, we're going to be looking for what's next. Correct?
I agree.
Because we can't change it now. They've already done the deal. So now let's see what happens.
Right.
And it's going to be wild, Joe, for the next 6, especially through this season. And all those guys from Liv Golf, they can't wait to play in the next 2 majors, the Open.
They're
The
so
Open
excited.
are you kidding me?
They're back on national TV.
Oh, and we're going to take a short break and come back with you know who.
Ooh, no, is it?
No,
Phil
I'm not going to
Mickelson?
tell anybody. Just pay
Jack
attention,
Nicklaus.
folks. Huh?
Jack Nicklaus.
No, somebody better than that. No, I don't want Nicholas. Somebody better than that. A local
Okay.
celebrity.
We'll keep everybody in
National
suspense.
celebrity.
National.
Yes.
Okay, but you slept last night.
I
for
did.
this one.
News Radio 570 WSYR, now on 106.9 FM. All right, we're back. It has been a wild morning, Joseph.
Yes, it has. But a lot of information today.
Oh, yes.
A lot of wonderful.
A lot of information, and we still won't know.
I'm
We
still
won't know.
confused, Perry.
Well, so am I. And Tom says that all the money from Liv is going to be, or not Liv, the private investment fund that the Saudis have is going to be poured into the PGA Tour.
And how much money? You must have told me 3 times today.
Well,
this morning.
the fund itself
Right.
has $720 billion, not million, folks, billion.
Billion.
Now think about that. But Mr. Dunn, who was on the PGA Tour board, says that, and I'm going to read this because it was a quote. He said that there's going to be more confusion. He says, but the fact that the PIF, Public Investment Fund, has bought the PGA Tour, Mr. Dunn says it's laughable. Now, I don't even know who this guy is, but
Wow.
They are making obscene money, and even from an amateur golfer, or even just an average citizen, when you see that somebody is making $5 or $6 million for playing one weekend of golf, a pitcher in the major leagues pitches one game and makes $1 million for pitching one game. One game, Joe. Something the world has changed.
And may only pitch 2 innings.
Yes, and they only pitch 2 innings. The world has changed.
But our next guest is not an average golfer.
No.
Is an amateur, Perry.
Yes, I know, but there's more credibility. But we're still trying to make the connection. So here's what we're going to do. I know that we've got Father's Day coming up next week, and you're going to be giving away some products that you have from CH Insurance, right? We're going to come up with some trivia questions.
Yes, we'll give some swag away. Golf balls, hats, shirts.
Oh, really?
Can't, one a week.
Logoed shirts.
Oh, yeah, of course, logo.
Oh, yes. Okay, great idea. Yeah, and we'll start that. We'll come up with some trivia questions.
Next week, you'll be good at that with trivia.
No, we're going to be good at
Is
that.
it going to be insurance trivia or golf trivia?
Well, come
We
on.
gotta do golf.
We have to do golf. I don't know what insurance trivia is, except that you gotta tell me what products that now you do. What kinds of insurance do you do now? Tell us about the
right,
company,
real
because
quick.
I still don't know.
Yes, you do. You were in our office this week.
I met your father, by the way.
Yes.
What a gentleman.
Thank you.
He reminds me so much,
Of you?
No, not of me, but I can tell here, Junior, you following your father's footsteps. I never had the opportunity to do that with my dad, but I can just see him and you blending, for whatever reason. It's nice to see family take over the insurance. How long you been doing business now? 25 years?
25 next year. So he's just great. Comes in every day, making it happen with us. Yeah. But anyway, we do business insurance, in personal insurance and group benefits.
Okay. Well, guess what? We have that surprise. We have the surprise guest.
But this is a good golfer, right?
No, not
amateur?
a good golfer, an excellent golfer.
Okay.
I played with this gentleman before, but I'm looking forward to his. But you wanted a question about a family question first.
Well,
so why don't you ask? No, you asked a question, and then people will know who we have on the air.
So we'd like that for our listeners. We're just wondering, just an update of Jimmy and Buddy.
Well, Jimmy got back from Europe this week. He played in Greece and then the Czech Republic. Had a pretty good year and is probably going to go back to Europe to play again. Buddy was with the Pistons on a two-way, so we played in the G League and then played up with the Pistons. So
great.
He's hoping to go back there and see what he can do in Detroit this year.
And at least we get to see Jimmy for Boeheim's Army this summer. I see he's back.
Yeah, he's going to play. They're getting a pretty good team together. It should be fun. We just start selling some tickets there. I haven't sold a lot of tickets yet. So
okay, you have the coaching instinct in the crowd, or
I'll just kind of advise.
Well, folks, if you haven't guessed who our next guest is, then you probably are sleeping under a rock as well. It is Coach Jim Boeheim from the Syracuse University. Thank you, Coach. We want to get your perspective on this Liv merger with the PGA Tour, because I don't know if anybody really knows what's going on behind closed doors, but give us your perspective and what you think is going on.
Well, first of all, it was going to happen sometime, because Liv was never going to run out of money. So anytime you have two competing, organizations in any sport or any business, if one is established and the other one has unlimited money, sooner or later there's going to be a merger. This probably happens sooner than anybody would have thought, but could have been something with legal consequences. They could have been worried about the lawsuits. The PGA has had to spend a lot of money to catch up against their purses. That could be some of it. I think what's going to be interesting going forward is to see how this works out. Is Liv going to go away? They're saying it isn't. And how can you have two tours? Then, where does Rory McIlroy play? Does he go over and play some Liv tournaments? And if that happens, these guys can only play so many tournaments. They're playing a full schedule on the PGA Tour. Can he play in that tour? And how's that going to work? Or is the Liv Tour going to go away? And those guys come back with obviously some penalties. But it's really going to be interesting to see how it all turns out.
They'll be able to pay those penalties, right, Perry?
I don't know. I don't know what the penalties are going to be. That's to be determined. But from the very beginning, Coach, I go back 3 years, and I remember when Jay Monahan was in front of the cameras and when he announced that the PGA Tour had just signed the biggest payday for the future, a $12 billion deal with television. going through the year 2030. And then, but he never said a word back then about what he was going to do with the extra money. And he certainly didn't have a plan to increase purses, have a way for college kids to get into the program and share the money with the players. He never came up with a plan until Norman had 2 years to work behind the scenes, and he gave his enemy time, and Norman did it. It was a shock to the world when Mickelson and Dustin Johnson and Reed, I mean, all of them, those 17 guys moved over, but think about it. He didn't announce that. I think if he had, when they made the $12 billion deal with TV, if he had come up with his plan, then I think it would have diffused a lot of this.
Right. So, Coach, I mean,
I don't think so, because Liv was going to come in, and instead of coming in with $1 billion, they'd come in with $2 billion.
Okay.
It wouldn't have been. It would up the price. But it'll be interesting to see how it works out. It really will. I think that's what I'm interested in. How does this work?
So we're all talking about, Moynihan. Coach, what do you think the week's been for Greg Norman? Is he sitting on the beach having a cup of coffee and just smiling?
He probably thinks they're going to keep going. He's that kind of guy. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. The money is going to go in from Liv, and that's going to how is that money used? Is it going to be to pay off Rory and all those pros?
That's a good point.
How are they going to do it?
Great point. Great point. Yes.
It'll be interesting to see how it all works out. It'll be. I don't know how it will, and I don't know if they know how it's going to work out right now.
Right. Let's not forget about the DP Tour, the European. I know it's live, but DP Tour won with this probably.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Well, the control, evidently, according to this article that was written by this fellow Rosenberg about Dunn, and they quoted him. I don't think you quote somebody unless this is going on. They're going to have control. Monahan's going to have control of Liv, and if he wants to disband it, he's going to disband it. Come on, they were playing for so much money; it's ridiculous.
I don't know. I mean, the guy that runs the back, the guy that really runs it, who's the head of the fund, is a really smart guy. And I don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. That guy's got a lot of control with the money that he has.
Okay, Coach.
Greg Norman doesn't have control. But
Correct.
that guy has control.
Okay, Coach. Thank you very much for your comments. Looks like we're going to have to close down. Hey, great. Have fun at your tournament next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
See you, Coach.
Talk to you later. Hey, how much time do we have, Connor?
We're just about wrapping it up, and here's the